you guys see that Terrell Davis was detained by the FBI? We're going to run through this story to start the show, and then we'll get into the Brandon Aiyuk trade segment. But Terrell Davis was traveling with his family on a United Airlines flight when things did not go so well at the end of the flight. It wasn't as bad as an episode of Air Disasters, which I love to watch before going to bed. But here are the facts before we share a long Instagram post that was shared by Terrell Davis, breaking down the entire event. So Davis and his family was flying on a United Airlines flight from Denver to Orange County, California to John Wayne Airport. And that is when things started to go downhill a little bit for Terrell Davis. So let's read what he posted on Instagram. During the beverage service, my son politely requested a cup of ice. The flight attendant either didn't hear or ignored his request and continued past our row. I calmly reached behind me and lightly tapped his arm to get his attention to ask again for a cup of ice for my son. He shouted, "Don't hit me," and left the car to hurriedly approach the front of the plane. I was confused, as were the passengers in front of me who witnessed the exchange. I thought nothing of it other than this particular employee was incredibly rude and blatantly wrong in his accusations of me hitting him. I did not see or interact with him further for the duration of the flight. As we landed in Orange County, the pilot asked all passengers to remain seated. 6 FBI and law enforcement agents boarded the plane. The FBI agents and local authorities proceeded directly to my seat and immediately placed me in handcuffs while seated and without any explanation in front of my wife and children while the entire flight of passengers watched in silence. I was then removed from the flight while being recorded by multiple passengers as I was paraded off of the plane in handcuffs by the officers. During questions, it was rightfully determined by the agents that this flight attendant was inaccurate in his accusations, and the agents profusely apologized, even offering to support me and my family in any way possible. The first thing that I think of when I'm reading this is, what the fuck happened? How can two stories be so far apart between one another, right? And I'm inclined to believe Terrell Davis' side of the story because it seems very believable. I don't know why anyone would get super pissed and hit a flight attendant over them potentially just not hearing a simple request for a cup of ice. And I don't understand how this flight attendant, whether they had a bad day times 10, decided, yeah, let's escalate the shit out of this and get Terrell Davis arrested. My guess is they probably didn't know that was Terrell Davis and this would become a major news story. But even if it wasn't a celebrity, if someone's going to get carried off in handcuffs by 6 FBI agents for a harmless tap on the shoulder to go, "Excuse me, can I get a cup of ice?" There's going to be a story because that's just how the internet works, whether you're a celebrity or not, and you're recorded getting handcuffed on a plane. Now, United Airlines then followed that up with this announcement in their official statement. This is clearly not the kind of travel experience we strive to provide, and we have reached out to Mr. Davis's team to apologize. We have removed the flight attendant from duty while we closely review this matter. Well, I'm happy to hear that the flight attendant has been removed from duty because getting someone paraded off for a tap on the shoulder, I don't understand what went down. And I think you really have to be on this plane or have some firsthand account and storytelling beyond just an Instagram post to get a true idea as to what the truth actually was. But I'm inclined to believe everything Terrell Davis said was 100% accurate. And what led this flight attendant to this power trip, I don't know. But it's the strangest thing in the world. And I'm happy to hear that it had a very calm and peaceful resolution and it didn't blow up from there. Well, that's a bad thing to say. Well, it didn't escalate from there. That's better use of term when talking about planes. But I will take this opportunity to remind people of my age group, Terrell Davis was awesome. Unfortunately, injuries really, kind of stunted a little bit, I think we can call it. A great start to a career. But look at what he did from 96 to 98. 1,500 yards, 1,700 yards, 2,000 yards, averaging over 5.5 yards a carry all 3 seasons, 13 touchdowns, 15 touchdowns, 21 touchdowns. This is just, at least at the very minimum, a good reminder that Terrell Davis kicked ass and was terrific and was one of the best running backs of his era. So let's show the guy some love. Type his jersey number 30 down below in the comment section. It's a bummer that he had to deal with something like this. I hope I or no one else watching has to deal with something like this over a simple request for a cup of ice. But show the guy some love. He's a Broncos legend, and no one should have to deal with that, legend or not. Now, before we move on to the Brandon Aiyuk portion of today's show, we are so close to 23,000 subscribers. You can almost taste it. 52 subs away. So if you have not subscribed and you want a free Broncos YouTube channel to add to the mix, go ahead and hit that sub button down below. Now let's talk about Brandon Aiyuk, because he is the number one story in the NFL news world after he requested a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. So let me give you some context surrounding the Brandon Aiyuk situation. According to Mike Garafolo and plenty of other insiders, Aiyuk has officially requested a trade after failed extension talks with the San Francisco 49ers. He is entering a $14.1 fully guaranteed $1 million fifth-year option, the final year of his rookie deal, and he's coming off the best year of his NFL career. He was a second-team All-Pro wide receiver, and he's only 26 years old, so he's not even really in the prime of his career. That's what's right in front of him. So naturally, you've got a 26-year-old coming off an All-Pro caliber season requesting a trade. All 31 other teams should be interested in trading for Brandon Aiyuk. 1,300 yards a year ago, 7 touchdowns. Following that up off a 1,808 touchdown campaign in 2022. Brandon Aiyuk has been one of the best wide receivers in football the last 2 years. And sure, the former first-round pick out of Arizona State had a bit of a slow-ish start to his career. But if slow-ish means 10 touchdowns in 2 seasons and over 1,500 yards combined, yeah, I think every team would sign up for if that's the definition of a slow start. Now, unfortunately for Denver, I'm not too optimistic about this trade actually happening. The timing feels a little bit off for the Broncos. Like, are they in a spot right now where they want to go and trade for a wide receiver who they then will have to turn around and make one of the highest paid wideouts in football? Probably not. Like, that's usually a move a team makes if they feel like they are truly in a spot where they can go out and win playoff games, where I know this is not the most popular opinion in the world, but for Denver, I think step one is making the playoffs. And then they can kind of start to approach guys like Brandon Aiyuk. So with that in mind, it's not just Aiyuk they have to go after. Like, they also have to take care of guys in their own backyard. Patrick Surtain is due for a major contract extension. I think he'll become the highest paid cornerback in football. So do the Broncos have deep enough pockets to go out and trade for Brandon Aiyuk, who would I think would get a 4-year, $130 million contract extension and then make him the second highest paid receiver in football? And on top of that, extend Patrick Surtain to, my guess is, a 5-year, $115 million contract. That's an average of $23 million a season, making him the highest paid cornerback in football. Like, the answer is yes, that they do have deep enough pockets to make this happen. Like, they simply do have an owner rich enough to have enough cash on hand to get something like this done. But there is the whole NFL salary cap, and that's going to be a bit of a problem for Patrick Surtain, Brandon Aiyuk, and the Broncos to get all of those monster deals done. So as fun as it would be for the Broncos to pursue Brandon Aiyuk, from a contract standpoint, it could be a lot more difficult because you do have to take care of Patrick Surtain soon. But I'd be lying if I said this wouldn't be an awesome addition. Like, it's Brandon Aiyuk. Like, imagine a core of Bo Nix, Aiyuk, Quinn Meinerz, Baron Browning, Patrick Surtain. I tossed in Baron Browning, but you could substitute that with, if you think Jonathan Cooper or Nick Bonito is a more ascending pass rusher, I wouldn't, put up a big fight against that. But this would be a really good start to the Broncos kind of turnaround of sorts. So it's hard not to be excited about the idea of trading for Brandon Aiyuk. And Sean Payton, he is an aggressive coach. He's an aggressive GM. I wouldn't put it past him to at least kick the tires a little bit on Aiyuk, pick up the phone, ask what the asking price is, be forced to get told no by the San Francisco 49ers. Like, that does seem something like Sean Payton would do. So I don't think there's a 0% chance, but I just feel like the timing and then the contract that Brandon Aiyuk has to get, those two together, they don't equate to a great outcome of likelihood for the Broncos. But if you do want to know what it would cost, I think Brandon Aiyuk to the Broncos, give the 49ers Courtland Sutton so that they feel like they could still be competitive offensively as they chase a Super Bowl. Second and third round pick. Like for the Broncos, they get an all-pro player without giving up a first-round pick. They move on from Courtland Sutton's big contract for the last 2 years of its deal. And sure, 2 day 2 draft picks, which aren't nothing, but it's better than giving up a first if you're Denver. So I'll turn it over to you. Would you do this trade? Give me an A for accept or a D for decline down below in the comment section. I want to know what you have to say about this trade idea here because it's going to be a fun topic for a lot of fan bases to discuss over the next few weeks as we get into NFL training camp. For me, if you want to fast forward a rebuild, this is definitely one way to do it. And rebuild might be a bit of a harsh term, but I do think moving on from Justin Simmons and trading Jerry Jeudy and going with a rookie quarterback, if you don't want to call it a rebuild, fine. Call it a retool. Call it whatever you want, but it's definitely something. There's definitely a change of direction going on, and there's some stripping of parts happening here. But you add an all-pro wide receiver at age 26, that's something Bo Nix is going to love a lot. All right, before we wrap up today's show, time for our summer hot takes. It is a high of 85 degrees in Denver today. Very nice. It's been very hot leading into this Tuesday. So our Golf Tan Lines hot take for today's show is Brandon Aiyuk will reach an extension with the San Francisco 49ers. I know he requested a trade, but there have been a lot of players in the history of NFL who have requested a trade and have not been traded. Jalen Johnson, the Bears cornerback, he requested a trade back in October. He was not dealt. A year ago, right around now, Deebo Samuel requested a trade from the very same team. He got a long-term deal. I think we'll see Aiyuk get a long-term deal with the 49ers.